Hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Products and Services here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to present Lead Solution Engineer Dion McCormick, no relation, as well as Sarah Mitchell, who's in charge of documentation here at Alpha. Today, Dion is going to be going over answers to a couple of questions that people have written in over the past week, but he's also here to take your questions as well. So go ahead and type those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. All right, let's get started. Hello, Dion, are you there?
Doing great. Hey there, Dave.
Excellent. Let me go ahead and make you the presenter.
By the way, I really like how now
are.
Sarah's the organizer. She's taken over.
I know, she was the first one here. Exactly, it was fantastic.
I've always been in charge.
Well, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate you joining us today. We have a couple demonstrations based upon our customers giving us requests. So I'm really excited about showing you that. A little too diverse types of demonstrations. But again, we're here to answer your questions, or better yet, attempt to answer your questions. So with that in mind, go to the questions area of your GoToWebinar control panel. If you have any burning questions, jump in there, get those in there. Dave and Sarah will be reviewing while I do this demo. Also, if you have questions during the demo, let me know. We'll stop and or we'll go through those and make sure we get those covered and handled from there. Excuse me. So first, I wanted to let you know that we do have the Developers Conference coming up later this year. In fact, let me jump over here and open up my browser and go to alphasoftware.com. If you go to Alpha Software, and we go ahead and it's under it's under resources, DevCon 2020. And here you can get information about it. There's going to be an amazing set of training for this virtual event. So you will walk away with really good information, not only what's going on in the alpha development world, what are the new features, capabilities, etc., but hands-on experience with developing and deploying and doing maybe more advanced things with the alpha platform. So that's available now. Go ahead and go over there, sign on up. We have a really good turnout. We're going to have a great seminar or DevCon, and we would like more and more people because it allows us to really engage with our developer base and, more importantly, not only speak but hear what people are interested in, what they're trying to do, and how we can best improve the technology. So go on over there and register now. I think you're really going to enjoy it. It's going to be a phenomenal event. So today what I want to do is talk a little bit more about some UI concepts. We've been focusing that a little bit lately with some of the new features, but these are kind of built-in capabilities that have been there for a little while, but there was some confusion on how to approach it. And the number one issue was when you have Action JavaScript, there's a really cool little feature where you can pass the reference to an object. And I'm going to show you why that's important, especially when you're doing user interface development work. And again, as I go through here, if you have questions, put them in there into the GoToWebinar control panel. And if you have other questions, let us know. And last but not least, both of these questions came through guides at alphasoftware.com. And in the guides at alphasoftware.com, we basically just went ahead and put together we basically put together today's demonstrations based upon that input. And again, I wanted to also do a real quick thank you to Sarah for doing a phenomenal job last week on the information regarding text dictionaries and translation and being able to create multilingual. That's a very important criteria since we are a global platform. And wanted to say thank you very much for her of handling that and doing a great job of putting that content together and delivering it. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump on over. So I've gone ahead, and what we're going to talk about is Action JavaScript pointer by reference. So I'm going to go ahead and just to start the conversation, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go ahead and create a Action JavaScript, and I'm going to edit that where I'm going to add a new thing. So just put it in there, and I'm going to click OK. So I've created an Action JavaScript in here. And if I want to use that in my solution, then I can create a button and then call that Action JavaScript. And again, this is an important concept, is that we really want to centralize our Action JavaScript. Traditionally, you can create Action JavaScript directly on a button, but it's linked to that button. And what we would rather do is create a central set of JavaScript actions that can be triggered by buttons, by multiple buttons in different contexts, and most importantly, by say basic callbacks, etc. And if you embed it, and let me just show you how I would do that. Let's say, let me save this real quick. Let's say I'm going to put a button here, and I'm going to go ahead and call that button test 1. And I'm going to go ahead and open that button, and I'm going to add a new action. I'm going to go hello, or no, I'm going to just do like a message. And I'm going to do a sample message. Now, what I've done is I've essentially embedded this action JavaScript in that button. So if I go over here, and you'll notice that I still have my test one I built a few moments ago, but the actual action JavaScript that's in here is linked to this button. So you've kind of embedded it into that button, and that's okay. If you're ever, if you just want something quick and dirty, and you end up saying, that's the only place I will ever call this action JavaScript, feel free to put it there. But trust me, what will happen is your application starts to mature. You're going to go, oh, I really wish I had that elsewhere. Now, like I had that centrally, so I could trigger that same action, say after a callback, or now with the new pusher stuff, which we're going to show next week. It's going to be really fun. One thing that's cool about Alpha and the development team, they want to make your life easier. So if you do actually start creating an action in this button here, you can actually hit this button right here and convert that into a action JavaScript or a JavaScript action at the UX level. So if you end up doing a couple of these, you can always go ahead and convert them, and I highly suggest doing so. And when you convert it, it's going to move it over into our central set of JavaScript actions. And along with that, it is going to put a reference in here to run that. So it takes care of all that for you. It's really, really handy from there. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. We don't need this right now. So there is an interesting issue that will come up in terms of using centralized action JavaScript. Since we've centralized it, it's no longer linked to a specific user interface item. So when I had my button there and I created it, that action JavaScript knew kind of where it came from. It knew oh, I came from this button. But when you centralize it, you may not have that situation. So I want to demonstrate why that's important. So in order to do so, I'm going to use a really cool feature built into Alpha, which I think you'll find interesting, is containers presented as windows. So you'll notice I have a panel layout here. I've got 3 panel cards, and I'm going to go ahead and go to this panel card number 3, and I'm going to go ahead and say that's about 50%, and I'm going to say it's docked collapsed after. And the main reason I'm doing that is now this panel card will not show unless I tell it to show. And in fact, I like to go ahead and rename this PC_hidden, so I'll know that this thing is not shown. And I can now put things in here and nobody will see it. So let me go ahead and put in a piece of static text. And now if you notice, when I run this UX here, since I've set this panel card to be docked, when I show it, you're going to see there's going to be only 2 parts of this interface. There'll be, oh, it's taking a second there. Well, you'll notice there's a little line. It's maybe hard to see on your screen. There's a lot, but there's nothing here. That panel card is actually here, but it's over here. So a common technique of if I have hidden fields, I want to track things, or I have like ID fields or things like that, I just put them into a panel card and dock it, and now it's hidden. And that way I have a central place to put all this information. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in my hidden card, and I want to create what's called a window container. So I'm going to create a container. And as you can see, we have a ton of different containers, but I'm going to go ahead and pick window, which is a really fun and powerful one to have. And I'll click insert after. So you'll notice it's inserted basically a container open and closing tag, and it's given it a special color so I can designate what kind of container it is. So I'm going to go in here and now within there, I'm going to put in a stack text. I'm going to say hello from window, and I'm going to go ahead and put in, say, a button here and say howdy, click me. So I can set that information. Now, since this is hidden, it's not shown. In fact, windows are always hidden, but I like to put it in a central location so it's where I can manage it from there. So now what I can do is, now that I have this cool window, I can do 2 things. One is I'm going to go back to my panel card number 1, and I'm going to create a button. And I'm going to do what I told you not to do, but I'm going to say show window 1. And I'm going to go into that button here, and I'm going to add my action JavaScript right here in this button. And that action JavaScript is the following. I'm going to do a show container window. So it's a built-in function, JavaScript action, called show container window, and it's specially built for these window items here. And I'm going to go ahead and tell it, well, I'm going to use window 1 because I could have multiple windows in my interface. So if I have different little pop-ups I want to show people, so I'll go window 1 and I'll click OK. I'll go show window. So now I have on my click event a action JavaScript that will show this window. So let's go ahead and show you what that looks like. I like when there's fewer controls. Renders a little quicker. Well, not that quick, apparently. So you'll notice first and foremost, I'm not seeing my window or anything else. It's all in my hidden panel card. But I do have my button over here in the panel card number 1. So I'm now going to click here, show window 1. And you'll notice that, boom, it popped up a window right here in the middle. Now, to make this a little more effective, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to use a compact theme so it looks a little nicer and a little bit more tighter. Yeah, that was kind of more of a mobile interface there. So I'll show window 1 and now I have this nice window, and it's a window. You can drag it around, you can close it, you can have it open. You'll notice at modal that I can't click behind it. So the default nature of a window, a container window, but this is really handy if you're doing like a confirmation message. This is the easiest way to create a confirmation message. You just click there, and then in here, you can put any action on this button you want. So it's a button that shows up when you want. You could put like a cancel button here and do those pieces from here. So it's really easy to do it. Now, the cool thing about this window is that right now you'll notice that when I clicked on it, it popped up as kind of a modal window. So you'll notice over on the right, when I've selected window 1, we have window properties. So I'm going to go ahead and edit the window properties. As you can see, there are a ton of properties. There are so many ways. These are very flexible items to be handled. So you'll notice that the default window type is called modal pop-up. That was where it popped up. It's modal, meaning I can't touch stuff behind it, but you can still interact with the content within the window itself. Thus, I could see the text, I could click on the button, etc. But we also have called modeless. So let's go ahead and look at that real quick just to experiment with that. So now you have a situation where now when I click my button, it shows a modal, but I can go in here and click other buttons and still interact with my user interface. And this all works fine. So you'll notice it's not grayed out because it's there. Now, another cool feature of the window is something called dropdown. And I'm going to go ahead and has pointer icon. So I selected from window type for my window. So notice what's interesting about this. I want to take a moment. You'll notice that my button, I haven't changed the action JavaScript. It just says show window. The window itself dictates how it shows. What are the parameters? What's the size? How should it be styled, etc. And you can see there's a whole bunch of help down here on how to help out and set that up here. So I'm basically saying now when you open up this window, I want it to be a drop-down window and I want you to show a pointer icon. So now let's go ahead and save that and let's do a working preview. And once this renders, okay, you'll notice, hey, that's pretty cool. It actually showed up as a drop-down window directly related to this button right here. And everything works the same. I can click out of it, etc. So this is really handy to create almost contextual menus. Now, we do now have the expanding menu and other things that are probably a little bit more powerful menus, but you may be, I've done it here, but maybe this is an image or a picture of a part of a control panel. And you want to be able to click on that image and then have it show a window. So windows are really fun. You can do a lot of really cool stuff with it. And they can be resizable. So if you have, resizable element, you're able to do that. It's up to you. Now, everything's working fine. And I'm going to go back to my original point now. So I've got my window. I love what it looks like. And I've got a window here where I click on it and it shows the window. So now what I want to do is I'm going to create a new button over here. So I'm going to go down here and create a new button. And I'll call this show button 2. Okay. Now for button 2, I want to take the stand where I want to not actually embed the attribute here. What I'd rather do is go to my JavaScript actions, and I'm going to create a new action that says show window. So again, same thing I kind of did on the button, but I'm doing it through here. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go ahead and look for my window command, show container window, and I'm going to say show window 1. and I'll go show window. So very similar to what I did there, but now I have centralized that activity. So I'm going to go and click save. Now I haven't changed the window or anything. So now I've got my central JavaScript action called show window. Now I'm going to go here to my button 2, and I can call that. And I can do it 2 different ways just to show you. First is I can click add new action. I can click run action, and then I can pick from those centralized actions what to run. So I can click show window, and it will show that window. Or if I want to, I can go to text mode, go here to action JavaScript and say insert code, and select show window. So both are equivalent. Basically, it's writing the same JavaScript, but I'm basically either using action JavaScript or text mode. It's up to you. It's whatever you're more comfortable with. Both are equivalent. But let's go ahead and show this. Now notice I haven't changed my window 1 at all. So now I'm going to go in here to working preview. And let's first show how it's working before. So show window 1 looks pretty good. Now I'm going to click here to show button 2. And you'll notice, oh, window container not found. Window 1, I think I did that. Oop, that was a little different, but we'll fix that in a moment. Oh, that's strange, but let me go ahead and just adjust it. So what should have, yeah, window 1. Let me go in here, JavaScript action, show window 1. That's interesting. I didn't anticipate that didn't happen in my pre-stuff. Let's go ahead and, well, let me just go ahead and adjust it. So let me try this real quick. Let's go ahead and delete that. Wow, so much first. It was moving smooth up to then. Let's try this now. And we'll do that. Wow, interesting. Well, let me go back. I'll have to look at why that's happening in that particular situation, but let me go back into here, and I'm going to do 2 things. First, I'm going to go back into here. There we go. That is all correct. That's show container window, show window 1. So now let me go to here, and instead of doing the actual command here, I'm going to do a run action, and I'm going to select show window, and we'll try that. Let's see if this gives me the same gotcha. Could be I just downloaded a pre-release. Maybe something went a little awry. So let me see what happens here. Okay. Yeah, I must. Oh man, that teaches me a lesson not to do pre-releases beforehand. Let's see, I'm in there. Drat. Well, let me go ahead and explain what should have happened, and I will fix this and send this, and it'll be available for anybody who wants to do it. Let's try this. You know what? I'm going to do just something to test this out. I'm going to actually put it inside here, and the window itself should not show unless it's shown. So let's see if that changes the equation a little bit here. Nope, something's up. So I'll go fix that and find out what's going on. But what will happen in the situation, and I want to show why we did this, is that I have my window here. And my window, when I click this button, run action here, what would normally happen is that since I have it as a drop down for that field, and you can pretend along with me real quick, when I click here, what will happen is the window will kind of just show up on the screen. I wouldn't get this alert. It would give me that from there. Well, actually notice, oh, there, it did show up. Okay. So notice how it showed up. It showed up kind of like hovering here. There must be a little glitch. So just bear with me here. So when I clicked on that, you'll notice that the window just kind of showed up. But now if I go back in here and I go to this action and I tell it to pass in a reference to the object that invokes the action and click OK, let's see what happens here. Since we created it as a dropdown, it's trying to look for who triggered it. And notice that's what happened here. So I guess that other error is actually related to the fact that it's trying to do a dropdown. That must be it. It's trying to do a dropdown and says, I can't find this. So that should just kind of ignore that error and it should just pop up. But you'll notice that the first time I did this and I ran it, I didn't pass in a reference. I basically just said, run this centralized action and the action is going to open up this window, and this window is actually looking for a reference to a pointer icon to who it called it. So if I did that straight away in the button itself, I added the JavaScript right to that window or that button, it knows the object that it came from. In the case where I'm running this central JavaScript action, I have to actually click this to say, when you run, pass it in and sort of a pointer to who called me. So now when I click here and I do a working preview, when I do that, watch what will happen now. It's going to call that central JavaScript, but it says, oh, I know where I'm being called from, and it shows it here. Now, the cool thing about that is that if I now go over here to show button number 2, and I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here. I'm going to add a new action, and I'm going to say run an action. I'm going to run my window action, but I'm going to pass in the pointer to it. You'll see now that the system is smart enough to understand, well, you're asking for a drop-down window here, okay? Or I can click here and notice the drop-down appears in the right location. So I'm sorry for that little glitch there. I guess you have to pass in a reference when you set up a drop-down window. Otherwise, it confuses the system. Although that seems like a bug for me, and should maybe just show the window and not necessarily be where it's at, but I'll go find that out for myself. But the powerful thing about this is now I can have multiple entities in my system and trigger the same behavior and pass it a pointer, and therefore I don't have to create a separate window for each one of my buttons, and I don't have to create a separate action JavaScript for each one, because I can just basically point in that reference. So that's the purpose for when you add a action in and it says, okay, pass in a reference, that's what it's doing. And it will tell you that it's giving basically a pointer relative. So if you have an action that's happening relative to an element on your user interface, that's what this is all about there. And in fact, if I go into text mode and I say, let's go ahead and do this, and I say insert code right there, you'll notice I have the same thing right here that basically allows you. You can click here and it explains it a little bit more of what's going on. But the reality is all you're doing is saying, when you run this action, go ahead and tell it where you're coming from, so that when that action runs, it can then resolve. And as you can see there, in my case, and this didn't do it when I was doing my pre-testing, it just threw the window up there in a random location. It's given me a problem, but once I pass in that reference, it goes, oh, no problem. I know now how to do that drop-down window, where I should put it. And so that's really handy. And again, one of the concepts is I'm using buttons, but those could be images in your user interface. And when you click on an image, it's going to trigger a window to pop up next to the image to maybe give you more detail about what that image is, or allow you to manipulate it or take action on it. So it's a very flexible system, and it really depends on that location awareness or reference awareness that enables right here. And so I want to thank that individual. It was a couple weeks ago, I forget who it was, but they were like, hey, what does that mean? That's why I put this together. And obviously didn't run through it enough times, but we kind of got there when it's all said and done. I think what will happen here is that if I get rid of in this window, I get rid of the pointer icon and I just make it a drop down, then it won't try to resolve where it comes from, but I'll have to experiment with from there. But if you are interested in getting a copy of this, just go ahead and email us at guides@alphasoftware.com, and we'll send you a copy of this. You can kind of use it as a pattern to kind of play with it. Highly recommend that you don't screw it up like I did, and make sure you click here so you don't get the same errors I did. But other than that, you kind of know now what to do and what not to do there. So that's demonstration number 1. It has to do with how to use that past reference. Dave, any questions or comments or jeering or laughing in the background on
there
there?
was one question, and it was,
oh, yes.
there's 2 windows. There's show window and show container window.
Oh, good point.
What's the difference between those 2 things?
That is a really good question. Let me go ahead and look at this. So I'll go to JavaScript actions. Actually, I'll do it on my test one here. Maybe that's what I did. Let me delete this. So we have a window. So we have show container window. This is the one I use to show and you can also use hide and close. So if you want to close that there, there's hide, close a window. That's a pop-up window. So I wonder what that's hiding. I don't know what that one is. I'd have to find out what that is because it seems
They might be
duplicate.
referencing the top two, one of the top two options, the open an A5W page or open a pop-up.
Yeah. And overlays are a little differently. They're basically special type of panels that come out. So I'll look into that. That's a really good question. And I'll come back with an answer. I hadn't dived into it deeply, mainly because I use container windows almost all the time because they're nice. They look nice. They're easy to style. You can do the drop down that next to where you want it to be. So that's a great question. Let me look into that and find out what the detail is on that. Notice it's saying show the contents of a container window in a pop-up window or panel. So you can do some cool stuff by having panel cards too and showing stuff there. That's pretty flexible. And it was before we got a lot of the panel stuff in there. It was the initial way to do windowed type interfaces on web. So great questions. I'll look into that.
All right, yeah. And then you may have noticed I'm not Dave. Dave's system froze up and he's
Oh,
trying to log
Dave's
back
not here,
in. So
man.
no, he's not
No,
here,
thank
man.
you.
So he might be getting back in soon. We'll see. But until then, you have to deal with me.
Oh, no.
So
I
yeah,
appreciate
anyway,
your
but
help. Thank
that
you.
was it. I don't see any other questions here related to this first demo.
Okay, cool. Again, if you get a chance, if you want it, send it. We'll make sure you are taken care of. And now you know what not to do. That's the important reason I do the failure point there. Okay, so we have a second demonstration, and this one's kind of interesting. It was that a developer called it or emailed in saying, you know, I have a UX control. And we've talked a lot about Amazon S3 and basically using imagery, how to upload them, download them with the multi-file, how to, you know, add them to lists and stuff like that. But there was a question that came in that talked about, well, if I am using images on my web server, so I'm using like the Alpha development environment and I'm using the Alpha standalone application server, well, my images are actually going to be on the server I'm on. It's not on S3, et cetera. So how do you handle that? How do you display that information? So what I'd like to do is go here and go to here. And I'd like to show you a demo, and then I'm going to build this very quickly to show you how you can then display images on your UX component. I'm using the list grid control to be able to do that. So I have a working preview here. I'll do a quick preview of what it looks like. So you'll see on the left-hand side, and it didn't work. Oh, maybe I have to do live preview. I think it's oh yeah, in working preview, I've noticed that it's a little wonky on that. Bear with me. Yeah, actually, let me show you what this really, and bear with me, I'll show you as it runs in here. What's going on? Oh, yeah, it's had this fixed. Okay, let me look at something real quick. Images. Ah, yep, they're all in there. Okay, let me just do a publish all. Sorry, everybody, bear with me. And I'll show you, and then I'll come back to this. It's using offset URLs, so that's why sometimes I see this kind of stuff happen. There we go. So it has to do with live preview, and I'll explain why this didn't work here when I did a live preview in a few moments. So this is the interface. So you can see I have a list control here, and in the list control, I have images. And these images are basically file name images. So I have a database table, and I just used Access for this, that all it has in there is, and actually let me go into images. You'll see that it basically just has a file name column and then a description of the image. And you could add other things here. And you'll notice this is just the file name here. Now in my system, and that's why I went in here, I'm going to go into my images. I've got a folder called images, and in that is my images. And so when it's running on the server, I have a subfolder called images that holds that information there. And so what I want to be able to do is I want to upload images into that folder. And then also when I'm running the actual list and detail view, I want to render those images. And so these are basically URLs to that image on my server. And it's running here on my local server. Now, the reason it didn't work in live preview here was because this URL is looking for, in live preview, I'm running out of the live preview folder. So it's looking for an images directory with those in, and I didn't put it there. So that's why this didn't work here. Once I published everything, on my server is not only the UX, but below that is a folder called images with the actual images that it could resolve. And if I click on here, you'll notice if I click on here, you'll see that I actually see the file name in my detail view. And I can just click on there and see there. And in fact, what I can do is upload an image. I'm opening up just here. So I'll go ahead and do, let's go 4th image. And you'll notice it put that image here, and I can click save and synchronize. And now that image has been uploaded into that subdirectory, and in the database, the image name has been saved in the database. So pretty handy. So you can use that to manage image, and you can use styling things. So I'd like to go through how I built this so you have a good feel for what it looks like in terms of the system here. So sorry for a little bit getting rough, but go ahead and we'll show you how easy it is to build this. There's a few steps you have to do to make sure it works. So first step I'm going to do is go to Web Components, and I'm going to create a new web component. And in my case, I'm going to use a UX component. And I'm just going to use a blank component. I could use side by side if I wanted. Okay, so now I'm going to go here to my controls. I'm going to go into my panel cards, and I like to go ahead and set up a panel layout. And then I'm going to add a panel card after this and another panel card after that. So I just want to, oops, panel card. I really am, there we are. Yeah, okay. So I have my panel card here, and I'm going to go image UX files to UX. And I just do this to structure my user interface so I know where to put stuff. Now, the cool thing is Alpha is going to do a lot of the hard work for me. So what I'd like to do is I want to, again, per my demonstration, I'm going to have a list over here, and then I'm going to have my detail view here. So the nice thing is Alpha will do that for me. So I'm going to go here to panel card number 1, and I'm going to click the opening tag. Then I'm going to go here to data controls, and I'm going to click list. And I'm going to go list image. It's just going to give it a name. Now I could manually configure this, but Alpha has the list control quick setup Genie, which I highly recommend using because it just makes sure everything's kind of wired up from the get-go, and then you can modify it from there. So I'm going to click on list control quick setup Genie. So now it's going to assume I'm doing a database connection. So I'm going to select my database. In this case, I'm just using the Northwind, but I added another table in there for fun. So I'm going to go to the table name. And in my case, it's called image underscore file. So that's that table I showed you that has basically this information here. An ID, which is auto increment, a file name, which is text, and a description, which is text. So I'm going to select that. Now it's asking me which fields I want. So I'm going to select all, click OK. And if I wanted to filter it, order it, I could do all that kind of stuff there. Now I'm going to have Alpha go ahead and create a detail view. And that's all I'm just going to have it do and take care of all that for me. So I've selected where I'm getting my data, in this case, a database field or a database table, and I want a detail view. And I'm going to click OK. So in the next few moments, it's going to go ahead and create a bunch of stuff for me. So you'll notice first it creates a list images. That is my core list. And then it creates a container. And in there we have our fields. We have an error placeholder to show any errors. And then a series of pre-made buttons that do things like save, new record, delete record, etc. Now in my user interface here, on my interface, I want my list to be all over here and take all that up. So currently all these controls are in this left-hand side. So I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to select my container and I'm going to move it down into my panel card number 2. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I'm going to do 1. So let's just go ahead and show where it is, and then I'll show you what we got to do to clean it up. So you'll see a few things. First, it is showing the data in my database. You notice it's pulling up that data. And over here, it's showing my detail view. And when I click on anything, you'll notice that my detail view is automatically updating. So if I wanted to change this, everything's wired up and ready to go. And I can synchronize it, done. But there's a problem. Well, this doesn't look very nice because it is kind of squeezed. I'm not using this whole panel card. 2, it's not showing the file name. It's not showing the image. It's actually showing the file name. And then over here, you'll notice it's also not showing the file name here. So let's go ahead and clean those things up real quick so we can make our interface look pretty good. So the first thing I'm going to do here is list images. I'm going to go ahead and select list images and then look at the list properties over here on the right. And you'll see it has a height and a width and then a parameter called fill container. So I'm going to click fill container. And what that will do is now when I run this, it's going to consume that container so you don't have all those borders and everything else. It's going to look a little nicer there. Now that doesn't address our issue of showing the image. So now let's go ahead and let's go into list of images and let's go into and modify it so it displays the image. So first we go fields, and you'll notice that the fields are currently all what are called text boxes. And this is again in the list, not in the detail view. We'll cover that in a moment. So the first thing I'm going to do is select file name and go over here to the control type. And I'm going to click on that control type and I'm going to say that it's an image. As you notice, you can put a whole bunch of different things in a list. You can have CSS icons, ink, JavaScript, maps, radio buttons, the world, it's really cool what it renders there. So now, once I've selected image, it allows me to decide, well, it needs to know a little bit more about what's in this field in the database. It can't really detect it, so it's going to ask me for what it is. So the first thing it's done is it's guessed, and it says the image data type is name, meaning it's a file name. And the answer is yes. But just to let you know, if you are saving your images in your database as base 64 data, which a lot of historical databases did it, more and more people are now moving to file-based systems. You'll notice I can switch it, and then what it will do is it will look actually in the data in that column and render it on the fly for me. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it as name. Now, also, by the way, if there's no image in there, we could select another image and we could do an image not found. So let's go ahead and put something in there. I'm going to put an SVG icon. So in case an image is not found, it's going to show like a no smoking sign kind of thing, or like an avatar type image. So it allows you to kind of say, oh, you must select a bitmap image. Oh, well, you have to select a different type of image there. And oh, you know what? Maybe we got a built-in one here. Let's try this. And we'll just do, let's see if there's a good one here. Just gonna grab anything. Did it do it? Yeah, it took that there. So if that is image, that way it's just not a blank on the screen. It looks pretty good from there. Now let's go ahead and look at that where we're at so far. So we've told this list that we want to show images, and we want to do that. And it should actually, doesn't show them working, but what you're going to find out is that this image is not displaying correctly. So actually, if I save this, and let's just show you what it looks like in here. I'm going to go image files UX2, just so I can show you there. And let's do this. There's a web component. And we'll publish load. I just want to show you that I'm not done yet. I just need to make sure you understand that when I told it, this is what it should look like. And currently it's not working. So this should be working. This is working it. I've got my subdirectory, etc. Now, the reason this is not working is because I didn't add the field or the fact that this has a folder where my images are at. So I actually have all my images in a subfolder. So that's why this is not rendering. And in fact, if you look at that, and let's see if we can do the inspection. This is just kind of handy to know this. I'm going to go ahead and use the developer tools. And I'm going to use the inspector here. And I'm going to inspect that item right there. And let's see if we can see. Yep. So you'll see that it actually is picking up. Okay, so what I did is I selected that little icon meaning missing image, which is Google Chrome's missing image. You'll notice that it actually rendered the image, but you'll notice what it says, fourth image.jpg. So it found the right image name in the database, but it's not actually finding the image, so thus it's not showing that. If we go in here, let me go ahead and show you this real quick. And this is important I want to show you this because this is the easiest way to kind of figure out, well, why is certain things not happening? So let's go here, and I'm going to select this. You'll notice in this case, it actually rendered images / fourth image. So the image is on the hard drive, it's in a subfolder, and it just so happens when I rendered this list, it added the little images there. When I rendered this one, it didn't, and that's why you have this problem here. So let's go fix that. So we'll go ahead and go in here. Let me go ahead and show you how I solved that. So I'm going to go back into the one that works, and I'm going to go into my fields. I'm going to go to this file name, and you'll notice that below the name, you have what's called an image file transformation template. And that's how we tell it that, oh, this stuff is going to be in a subfolder. So now we can go in, and let me go ahead and adjust that here. Going to go to my fields, go to there, and you'll notice it's empty. That is why it didn't add that. So I'm going to click on here. Now you'll notice that it gives you a lot of help. And so first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to insert my value. So what that will insert is the file name in the database. So that all it does is insert this text into that location. But what we need to actually do is tell it, oh, okay, my files are in images, i.e. that subdirectory /value, meaning when you render that little piece of cell, just tack on images / in front of the file name and then do that from there. So I'll go ahead and click OK. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go ahead and just publish this because I'm going to publish to my local. And I'm going to go back to my web browser. Notice it isn't working, but I'm going to refresh it. And notice the images are now fine. Now I have a sizing issue. We can talk about that a little later, but you'll also notice that the images has now been put in front of that. That's why the browser found that particular location. So that's what you can do from there to do it. So that step number one to get these images to work on the left is to make sure when you create your image field that you make sure the path is known. Obviously, if my images were at the root of my application, which is not recommended because it's not a good way to organize stuff, then it would just be the value and you would show it from there. Okay, so now we've got that. Now what we need to do is we need to look at our the issue of over here. So when I select an item, you'll notice that it's just showing the file name right here. So what we need to do is actually go into file name. This is part of my detail view here, and we're going to change the control type to image. And let's go ahead and publish that. And we'll do a refresh on our browser. So you can see, it's all kind of built in. You just got to configure it correctly so it gets to the right thing from here. So notice now, voila, it's rendering the right image. Now, very important, I want to go back here and go back to this file name, or I'm sorry, here. You'll notice that it actually is picking up that file name from this field here. So I didn't have to redo the images thing. I had to do that here because and actually I'll show you, I'm going to go ahead and turn this back into a text box real quick and show you what it looks like, because I want you to understand, because it's kind of critical on how to do this. So if you'll notice, if I re-render this, it's going to show over here, but since I made this a text box, but you'll notice when I select it that what it does is this is being read from the list. The list is tacking on that precursor folder. The actual data in the database is just fourth image here. So the cool thing is alpha, oops, don't want to change that. Let's reset that. Oop, I screwed it up. I'll just refresh it here. So the idea is that list is doing that work of making sure that everything is mapped. And then when I turn that into a file name, into a image, well, it automatically just looks at its content. And at that point, it just renders the image as an image instead of a file name. And we get the result that we're looking for. Now I want to show you one other thing that's really powerful and easy. So there's my images. And go here, and there's my image from there. Okay, so want to do one last thing. And what I want to do is add a button to actually upload it. So as you can see in here, I've got a button here that I clicked earlier called Upload Image. So I'm going to go back into my control. I'm going to go ahead and go right here, and I'm going to add a new button. So let's do ahead and add a button. And I'm going to call that Upload Image. And I'm going to make this a capsule because that's kind of a nicer way to make it look. Now, one other thing I want to do is I want to make this look pretty sharp. So I'm going to go image followed by text. And I'm going to do in here XVG content. This will work now. And upload. And I'm just going to put something in there to show it. That could be like a camera image or anything like that. So now we have a nice little button that shows on each page or each one, showing a little button now that, and again, it's not working on the rendering here, but now I have this nice button to use right here. So we can go into that button. I can go to add new action, and I'm going to type the word image, and you'll notice we have a number of different ones. We've got image upload, image capture, image delete. This is the one I want to use. Image capture for list detail view. Because we have a list and a detail view, that's the one we want to use. There is ways of doing your own image capture, an image upload, but this is, it's from a file system. It doesn't support the camera. This is the one you want to use, because this would then, if you're actually using it on a device out on and you're connected, not disconnected, this all will work. So I first need to tell it, well, what image am I trying to capture to? And so you can see we only have one called file name. And then it's asking me a couple other things. Well, how are we doing this? We also have an option of using HTML, PhoneGap, or PhoneGap preferred. PhoneGap, if you enable that and you build it into an app, it's going to use the file system and a whole bunch of other features there. It also has a cool feature called create image thumbnails. So when you upload this image, you could actually have a second field that has a thumbnail name, and it will actually generate a thumbnail for you and save that information, which is really handy because often you need thumbnails to show them in list controls and other things like that. You can resize the image. So in this case, I'm always resizing the image, or I can tell it only if the image exceeds a certain size. And that really depends on whether you need high resolution images or you're just trying to capture quick ones and you just need smaller, lower resolution. You also have other things like in trigger in case you cancel the capture, you could reset something. So you have a lot of control over the event here, but I'm going to leave them as they are here. I'm going to go into more properties. Now this is very important. So I've told it, it's using that file name here, use the HTML file, but I need to tell it a little bit more. First thing I need to do is tell it what upload folder. So I click here and I can tell it, I need to go into my images folder. So that's where I want to put it, is it's going to go into my images, and I'll double check I have that correct in a moment. So therefore, when it uploads it, it doesn't upload it into the root of my web application. It's actually going to put it into that subfolder there. The other file exists action is, well, should I overwrite or rename the file? So it's up to you if you want to just overwrite, but that may be problematic. You may want to do a rename so that you don't accidentally upload a file and overwrite someone else's and break something. But I'm going to keep it overwrite for now. And then the stored file name is what we basically want to store in my my field. So in my case, remember, I'm only storing the short file name. So all I want, this is the full file that is getting uploaded. What we want to do is only store that, because my database model uses file name, just the name itself. It doesn't use a directory, but you can use others. If you want to create other kind of ways of storing it in there, you're welcome to. This gives you that power to kind of say, before you put it into that field, what should you do there? So that's all there is to it. By the way, if I want to, you can also use S3 for this, but the topic on this. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this. I want to check something here just to make sure. I'm going to go into my upload image, and yeah, I just said images. I just told it the name of that subfolder to go there. And let me just make sure I did that correctly. Images, cool. I did do it right. So let's save this, publish it. I want to run it in my browser. So now I'm going to refresh this. This is my new one. So you'll see now, oh, that's my old one. Here's my new one. They all look the same after a while. And I'll go ahead and close this, don't need that. Okay, so now we have, same thing, but now we have an upload image button. So I'll click here and I'm gonna go ahead and upload the image. Now, since I'm on a desktop, it's opening up the file browser, but obviously on a phone, if you're connected, it would actually allow you to use the camera. So I'll go ahead and put in first image thumbnail. It's a little small one. Click open. You'll notice that, oh, that's not a good one. Let's change it. Let's go to this one. That's kind of a cool looking image. So notice that it automatically did two things. One, it's uploaded it to the system. It's renamed it here and put in that file name. Now when I click save, you'll notice that it saved it into the list And now in my database, and I go ahead and refresh this, you'll see that that new image name has been put into the file name, and it's looking at that subdirectory for that information. And that's how it's rendering properly here and here. So that is how to manage images in a UX and easily add images into your application, put them into a subfolder, modify them, enhance them, you name it. And then we also have download images and other kind of features you can use to go ahead and get those images back down onto your local machine. But you'll notice this is happening all in the web browser. It's kind of nicely. You can now work on formatting the images, the size, hiding the ID column, making some of these things automatic. Like when I click save, I can have it automatically synchronized and things like that. So with that in mind, we've got about 10 minutes. So I want to make sure if there are any questions about that, we answer those questions. And I want to really appreciate the person who sent in that request. And I hope this satisfies their question. And again, if you're interested in this, please, by all means, email us and we'll send you this component to you. And you can enable it on yourself. You have to kind of build your own little database table, but it's really simple. It's ID, file name, description, super simple.
Okay. Just give everybody a moment if they want to ask a question about this to ask one. There are some upload questions, but not related to this example.
We can try and
We'll
address
start
them.
with that one. This one is, how do you upload to specific virtual folders in Amazon S3? And this person's using the drag and drop
Yep.
functionality, and they need to change the folder each time they upload.
Yeah, and actually the cool thing about it, so first and foremost, is, and this is very important for you to understand, let's go ahead and go here. Okay, first and foremost, folders don't exist on Amazon. They're virtual folders, which I appreciate that person putting that term in there. The reality is Amazon S3 is a flat file structure, meaning that all the objects are just in one big bucket. And that's why they call it a bucket, because it denotes you have this one big bucket. But when you save it, if you change the file name to make it look like a URL, then you can treat them as folders. So you can do that from there. Now, the way you do that is when you actually upload, you are given the opportunity to tell it the target object name on Amazon S3. So by default, it will just take whatever the name of the object, like the file name, but you can trap it before it stores it. So actually, if you see, there's some instructions that are right here on this. And you can see if you add that my folder 1/ and then e.name. So e.name is what Alpha knows what the name of this item is. And you'll notice that, but before it, I can in JavaScript in here, and I can just open this up here, and I can say my folder / plus e.name. Then what it's going to do is when it saves to Amazon 3, this is going to be the file name. And essentially that virtual folder concept has done it. So what you'll do is you'll use that target object name on the fly. So one way you can do it is pretty cool. So let's say, and I'll kind of show you an example of how I did it on another project. Yes, wait, no. So I have a hidden field here, and I'll call it folder name. And in here, with whatever reason, like this may be linked to an ID, I'll have a value, and I'll call this folder folder XYZ. And that's the default value. So that's what's in this folder ID. And then what I do is when I go to do the upload here, in my target name, I do the following. I say var folder name is equal to dialog get value dot object dot get value. And then I get that hidden field name, folder name. Then what I do is I say return folder name plus / plus e.name. So what it's going to do is it's going to append that folder name. Now, I'm getting it from the user interface, which is handy, but in Action JavaScript, for instance, you could use a session variable that you passed in. So maybe you set it in a session variable. Another very powerful way you can do it is arguments. Let's say you passed an argument in. You can actually use argument names in your JavaScript. So there's many different ways, but the trick is you have to edit this target object name to append that folder to the object name. And then when it gets stored on Amazon, it uses that file name, and boom, then when you used any other interface like Cloudberry or their actual one, you'll see everything loaded into folders. So that's how you use virtual folders in Amazon S3. Pretty handy and pretty helpful in terms of how you do that.
All right.
Good question.
Yeah, it was a great question. I do see several people had issues with sound today.
Ooh,
I can
interesting.
hear you just fine.
Well, we have recorded this, and
this has been
so
recorded, so it will be posted up. You could actually go to our YouTube channel, our Alpha Software YouTube channel, and if you subscribe, you can even turn on notifications, so then you would get like a notice that's been posted. But I will, well, Dion here can look up that link and share it with you guys. It's definitely a great
I
place to
forget
go watch past
what is our
videos as
channel
well.
name? Yeah, I forget what it
Alpha
is.
Software.
.YouTube or
Oh, let me grab it real quick.
Yeah, sorry about that. I know audio stuff can be very annoying because you're like, what are they saying?
Yeah, so I let me see if I can find it. Find our playlist. And oops, I will go ahead and put that
In the chat window?
in the chat window when I find it.
Huh?
I found transform.
Oh, I don't have my subscriptions on this machine. So
I wonder what happened to it.
no.
Well, I know we had one. Instead, I'll just share our Alpha Software our Alpha
But we
Software
will be
channel with
posting this,
everyone.
and
Right.
you know the audio should be crystal clear on that because it gets
So
recorded.
for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna ask what happened to that other playlist. I wonder if we disabled it accidentally when we were building out some new ones.
But
Oh, I
thank
found
you so much, everybody, for joining us.
found it.
Yeah. Great questions. I really
Here we
appreciate
go.
it.
Yeah. And then to answer another individual's question, where can I go to watch a past webinar? Definitely go and look at that playlist. You can search our channel. You can favorite things. It's definitely worth doing that so you can stay on top of things.
YouTube taking over the world.
Mm-hmm.
I actually heard that they actually have more views than regular TV now in terms of minutes shown. But it's all in like 12-second increments. But I would guess like TikTok's even more. I mean, that's just scary how many, you know, amazing what's going on there. But thank you,
Yeah.
everybody. That was great. And again, thank you so much for the individuals who asked these questions. They really help us prepare. And as you can see, even when I prepare, it goes south, but we learn as we fail. So that's important there. But I do appreciate it. And we want more comments. So give us those questions, helps us drive. So we're developing content and information that's useful to you. And most likely, if it's useful for you, guess what? Your other developers are already dealing with it or they are going to be doing it. So we really appreciate the community a lot.
And then looks like we have one more question here, and
Sure.
I think it's quick, but you can't really
Yeah,
demo it.
better
It's
be. We got
about
1 minute.
it's about UI WebView and Apple ending where I guess having a policy here in April where if your application is using UI WebView, it will be rejected from the App Store starting on April 2020. They are actually they've been issuing warnings, and the way that's apparently been working is that they just search your application for the phrase UI WebView, and if they find it, then they issue that warning. And the folks over at PhoneGap Build have some comments. This is what I've been told from some of our other developers, but some of their comments in their code have the word UI web view. So they're going through and removing it, and hopefully that will be fixed before the end of the month. But if you're using any other plugins that actually rely on the UI web view, you may still run into that issue. So you need to inspect your apps to make sure that you're not using any other things that might be reliant on that.
Agreed. And make sure you're in here that you're using the Alpha WK Web View engine. Make sure
Correct.
that's enabled, because that will include our web view engine, and then, obviously your app will support. So you probably already know that, but for people who are new, make sure that's enabled. Cool. Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us. We'll make sure this gets posted up to the YouTube channel and content for you to be able to review. If you want any of these controls or UXs, please send it to us, and we'll send it back out to you. Just guides@alphasoftware.com.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, very much.
We'll catch you next time.
Bye now.